This is Grief and Grit, from heartache to high fives with a dash of sass. The podcast that turns the tables on traditional grief talks with a fresh, sassy spin. Listen in for candid conversations about the messy, awkward, and downright hilarious aspects of dealing with loss. Because sometimes the best way to cope is with a little laughter and a lot of grit.
Okay, this is happening. We're doing this, Simonie. I know.
Oh my gosh. Oh, yay.
This is really, really cool. Okay. Well, what's going on?
Hi.
Hi.
So, this is exciting.
It is. We're doing our first podcast.
This is our first podcast and one of many, many. And for everyone listening, we're so excited. We're so grateful. We're so honored to be here. And, you know, for everyone, there's a grief journey in all of us, whatever it may be. There's loss. We've all experienced some form of loss. And I know for Greer and I, this has really been a journey, and one that has brought us together, and one that we want to share with all of you, and just sit back and listen and become part of our world. And we want to become part of yours. And so what we're going to say is go grab yourself a cup of tea, get yourself comfortable like we are, and let's delve into the world of grief and loss and talk about how we first came to be.
Yeah. We met because in May of 21,
right,
my husband, Jared, passed suddenly. And I'll let you go from there because you were on the other side of it.
Yes, so I was on the other side of it. And in my neighborhood, is one of Greer's really close friends who we know. My daughter used to babysit for her. And I remember getting a phone call, I think it was the day after Jared had passed away, very suddenly. And she said to me, will you help my friend? And of course, having been in her exact position many years prior, I knew that this was not the time she needed to speak to me. That would come. Anyway, so long story short, we had a lot of weird connections through that early stage time. My daughter is a speech pathologist and she was going into private practice. And Greer had said, I don't know if you had posted it or if you had told EJ.
So the background was, we closed on a house.
Right.
The month before Jared died. And we were planning on having a garage sale that morning. So we were actually setting up for the garage sale. We had so much stuff, baby stuff, all the things that we just didn't want to move to the new house. As we were setting up, that's when Jared collapsed and started going into cardiac arrest. I'll share more on a later episode, but in the meantime, there was no garage sale. I had to cancel everything, and I still had a garage full of things to get rid of.
Right.
And because I am who I am, during COVID, I stocked up on all of these educational things because my kids were home.
Yes.
And at the time, they were 2 and 3. And then 3 and 4 during COVID. So we just had a lot of materials. So I remember EJ, our mutual friend, asking if her friend of the family who's becoming a speech pathologist could come and get some of the things.
That's
and it's like, of
right.
course, enter in Bianca.
Yes. So Bianca, who's my daughter, goes to this house and she picks up all this incredible stuff. She was so excited, but she felt torn at the same time because she knew where Greer was at and she knew why she was getting all these things. So it was bittersweet for her, but there was that connection to Greer again. And then I think another year passed, and, I would ask EJ very frequently how you were doing and, what was going on. And then it was time. As in everything in life, we've learned there's a time and a place for everything. And when it's meant to be, everything aligns. And I reached out to Greer, and she called back.
I did.
And then I knew she was okay. She was ready. She had got through the fog, and we met for a coffee, which turned into a beautiful friendship. And we knew the minute we met that this was meant to be.
Yeah. And
we decided that we needed to share our story and help people out there and, wherever, come together. And here we are.
Yeah.
The start.
I remember it was just love at first sight.
Yes.
Like, I just remember walking in and just like the biggest hug ever. I mean, you're just so warm and loving. Like, I feel like we had already known each other forever.
Exactly.
And we had our spot where we would go and get coffee and tea, just local here in Atlanta. And I remember we were there one day, and all of a sudden Simonie says, "Would you co-host a podcast with me?" And I was like stunned. I was just so honored and humbled. I just couldn't believe it. Because one thing that I know the both of us feel so strongly about trying to normalize grief. It's this universal thing,
right,
that we all feel for different reasons. Correct. Whether it's the loss of a loved one, whether it's the loss of a relationship, the loss of a job, the loss of a pet, so many things. Moving, I mean, even leaving a home and the memories that it has.
I mean, there's everything. There's loss of identity. There's lots of hopes and dreams that you may have had. And so, this was born. So Grief and Grit was born.
And that's how we got our name. Grief and Grit, the grief piece is obvious. We've spoken about that. But grief is not pretty at all.
So I think there was a play on that word that, grit, which grits
the southern
yummy stuff that we eat that I happen to really, really love is that warm, comforting. There's that grit, and then the grit of being strong and having your strength. And I think that is so prevalent in grief, is that, where do we find our strength? Where do we draw that strength from? And so many of us who have traveled this path do have grit, because so many of us come out winning on the other side. So that is how we came to Grief and Grit.
Yeah. And, the tagline, from heartache to high fives with a dash of sass, I think that just speaks to us. Heartache is obvious. There are significant lows and bottoms when it comes to grief. And then there are huge wins. Once you've gotten through the firsts, those are the high fives. And frankly, those need to be celebrated.
Yeah.
Even, the small tasks. I remember like months after Jared died, and it would take me a day to do one thing that used to take me 5 minutes. And it's almost like I needed a whole stadium cheering me on and like giving me a round of applause because of the effort that it took to do that one thing.
Yeah.
So, the high fives are really critical.
I know. It's just a matter of, like, when you're going through it, just getting out of bed in the morning in the very beginning can be you need the biggest high five for that. So we want to be able to celebrate all the small accomplishments that come with the journey.
Exactly. And I definitely have gotten through this process with a lot of laughter and sarcasm. I have definitely found a darker sense of humor So there will be some sassiness, and I also my now 6-year-old definitely is showing me the sass. So got to show the sass right back, right?
Yeah. It's so true. It's like moving into the darker side, and so often we as a family have we've embraced that, and that's what it's become. And it's like when we say it in front of other people, the look of horror and shock, and they don't quite know what to do with it. But so we're going to have a lot of sass in our upcoming podcasts as well.
Yeah. So Grief and Grit is born, and here we are.
Lots of good things to come.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, throughout this journey with this podcast, a lot of this is going to be therapy for me because I feel like part of my grief journey has been to share our story, continue Jared's legacy, try to help others through, similar situations. And
Correct.
I just remember when all of this happened, and I remember I actually included this in the eulogy at his funeral. I know we'll be okay. I just don't know how yet.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're okay.
Yeah.
We're 3 years out and we're okay.
Right.
We look forward to sharing, the journey because it never goes away.
It never
ever.
goes away.
Yeah.
It's always there, but it's how we navigate it and how through, you can thrive. You can really have a thriving life, even through the biggest loss.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're here to do.
Yeah. We look forward to doing this some more. So thank y'all.
And tune in for more exciting things to come.
Yes.
Thanks for listening. If you love what you heard, please follow Grief and Grit and share our podcast with your friends and family.